There's a specific feeling actually. I wanted to record this. There's a specific feeling when I walk into a bar, and it doesn't matter if it's London or Taipei, and every time I see Belgian beer on the menu, like Duvel, Chimay, Leffe, something always shifts in my head. Not sure if it's nostalgia, but it's more of a question that surfaces without warning, like should I have stayed in Belgium? I never really answer it. I just order the beer, take a sip, and then sit with it for a minute. Um, I mean, I was raised there, so Belgium for me is a strange place to miss, and it's one of the smallest countries in Europe, tiny in a way that feels almost absurd, when you think about that. And yet it somehow managed to shape a big chunk of who I am. I wasn't even born there, I was born in Asia, but I was raised there since I was a baby, which is a different thing. So I didn't arrive there as a blank slate. I arrived as a baby, and Belgium filled in basically all of my blanks, and it was my entire childhood. And to be honest, there's generally nothing pulling me back right now. There's no family situation that requires it, no career reason, no unfinished chapter that needs closing in Belgium. So when I ask myself the honest question, what would I go back to? I don't have a good answer. The country has changed. The times have changed. I've changed. The version of Belgium, that I grew up with and that I carry around with me, it doesn't really exist anymore. And that's the part I think that gets me. I mean, the early 90s were something else. Jesus. I mean, I know everyone says that about their childhood decade, but I mean it in a very specific way. The world hadn't quite become what it is now. Things moved a lot slower. Information was local. If something was happening, on the other side of the world, you didn't feel it in real time. You might have read it like a few days later, but you might just never found out at all. There was a kind of friction of life that I think protected people in a way, especially kids. You were just there in your neighborhood, in your school, in your small area, radius of existence, if that makes sense. And that was basically enough. And for me, growing up basically in Belgium, in that era, it had texture. The grey winters, the cobblestone streets, the smell of fries, Belgian fries from a roadside friture. That's what we call it. Sunday afternoons that somehow felt longer than they actually were. And I realized that I didn't appreciate it at the time. Obviously, that's the deal with childhood. I think you're too busy living it not to notice what it is. But now I do, so many years later. And one of the weird things is that I've been using English as my primary driver, as a language, for almost 20 years now. It became my operating language, right? It became my first language, and the one that I think in, work in, write in. Dutch and specifically Flemish, because it's just a dialect. Flemish is a dialect of Dutch. Is it just kind of faded in the background. It's not gone, I would say, but it's quieter, like a radio station that you can still tune in to, but have stopped listening to. But recently, I started pulling back, or I started pulling that signal back in. Flemish podcasts, Dutch YouTube channels, content that sounds like home, even when home isn't somewhere I'm planning to return to. And I'm not entirely even sure why I started doing this. Part of it is probably just wanting to feel connected to something that's mine in a way that doesn't need to be explained or translated. And there's a relief in that, listening to, Flemish and just understanding without any processing in between. Well, to be honest, I have a I had a hard time in the beginning though, because it was such a long time that I've spoken my first language, and secondary language is French, by the way. Mm. I mean, but it's not about rejecting, English. I mean, definitely not. English language itself opened the world for me in a way that Dutch or Flemish never could have. I mean, that's just true. But somewhere in the process of going, let's say, wider, I think I let go of something narrow and specific that I didn't mean to let go of. And I'm not sure if I want it back in any practical sense, because I'm not about to move back to Brussels and open a bar or restaurant. Um, but I found myself thinking about those early years more than I used to. And the version of me that was being formed before I had any, I don't know how to explain that. I mean, I had any say in it, right? The world that existed before everything became so fast and loud and globally entangled. And every time, like I said, the beer on the shelf just reminds me it was all real and that's all it is. But yes, I I think for me Belgium is where I was raised, um, and it will always be a part of my life, whether it's in my subconscious or even when I would never go back, actually. But yeah, that's what I wanted to share. Thanks for listening.